Hi, my name is Dana Moore. I'm 32 now, living in Seattle, and I run a tech firm I built from the ground up. But if you met me in high school, Fairview High in Madison, Wisconsin, you wouldn't have believed I'd end up here. Honestly, back then, I didn't believe it either. High school was, well, torture. There's no sugarcoating it. I was the fat girl. The weird one. The one who sat alone at lunch, who always wore hoodies even in spring, who hoped invisibility was a real power. But it wasn't. At Fairview, people like me didn't get to be invisible, we got laughed at instead. Kelsey Burns was the queen bee. Blonde, loud, always flanked by her two sidekicks, Mia and Travis. Kelsey ran that school like it was her personal kingdom, and I was her favorite target. Every single day, it was something. I remember once, in sophomore year, I wore this lavender shirt I liked, thought it looked cute, made me feel kind of good about myself for once. I barely made it 10 steps into the hallway before Travis said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey Kels, look, Barney learned how to walk." Everyone laughed. I went into the bathroom and didn't come out until second period. I never wore that shirt again. There were other days, worse ones. Someone left a granola bar taped to my locker with a note, "You missed a snack, Chubbs." Mia once accidentally tripped me in gym class, and when I fell, everyone clapped like it was some kind of comedy show. Kelsey laughed the loudest. Teachers? They either didn't notice or didn't want to deal with it. And I stopped talking about it at home. My mom was working 2 jobs after my dad passed. She already had too much on her plate. So I kept quiet. I coped the only way I could, by disappearing into books, coding on an old secondhand laptop, and binge-watching TED Talks in my bedroom like they were lifelines. But even back then, there was a tiny voice inside me, buried under all the shame. That whispered, "One day, this won't be your life." And as small as that voice was, I held on to it. I made it through high school by staying invisible, avoiding eye contact, and surviving one miserable day at a time. Graduation day felt less like a celebration and more like an escape. When they all threw their caps in the air on the football field, I didn't even smile. I just looked up at the sky and thought, it's over. I survived. But what I didn't know back then was that the real transformation hadn't even begun. After graduation, I left Madison and never looked back. I got into Northwestern University in Chicago not because I had stellar grades, but because I poured my soul into my essay. I wrote about resilience, about how growing up invisible taught me to see things other people missed. I guess someone on the admissions panel believed in me more than I believed in myself. That first year in Chicago was hard. I didn't have a lot of money. My mom and I were still scraping by, and I worked part-time as a library assistant on campus. But it felt different. For the first time in years, I wasn't Fat Dana. I was just Dana. No one laughed at me when I walked into a classroom. No one knew the jokes from high school. I was free to rebuild myself from the ground up. I started going to therapy, something I never thought I'd do. I didn't talk about Kelsey or Travis or Mia at first. It took months just to admit that the bullying had damaged me. But my therapist, Dr. Lena, was patient. She never pushed, just listened. "I think you've been trying to disappear for too long," she told me once. "But maybe it's time to take up space, not just physically, but emotionally." I started taking care of myself. Not because I wanted revenge or to fit someone else's mold, but because I wanted to feel strong in my own body. I met with a campus nutritionist, not for some crash diet, but for balance. I started lifting weights, not to shrink myself, but to build myself. And I found my thing. Tech UX design, specifically. I'd always loved solving problems quietly behind the scenes. I taught myself HTML and CSS in high school when no one was looking, but now it became more than a hobby. I was that student who stayed in the lab until midnight, running tests on user flows, building wireframes, and tinkering with UI layouts for fun. By the time I graduated, I had offers lined up. Not flashy ones, but enough to start building something. I took a job at a mid-sized agency called Pixel Reach, where I worked under a brilliant but eccentric creative director named Raj. He pushed me hard, taught me everything he knew. Within 3 years, I became one of their top leads. And that's when it hit me. I didn't want to spend my life climbing someone else's ladder. I wanted to build the whole damn building. So, at 27, I took a risk. I partnered with my mentor, Raj, and we launched Reframe Labs, a boutique UX consulting firm focused on inclusive, user-centered design. Just the two of us in a tiny WeWork space with bad Wi-Fi and unlimited coffee. The early days were brutal, client rejections, investor ghosting, ramen for dinner, but we kept pushing. By the time I hit 31, Reframe had grown into a 30-person firm with clients in fintech, healthcare, and education. We weren't flashy, but we were respected. And then in year 4 of Reframe Labs, we decided to expand our recruitment efforts to smaller cities to give chances to overlooked talent. One of those cities? Madison, Wisconsin. And what happened there? Well, let's just say karma knows how to find its way home. It was almost surreal driving back into Madison. I hadn't been home in nearly a decade. The city felt both familiar and distant, like an old coat that no longer fit. My mom still lived in the same 2-bedroom townhouse on Maplewood Lane, but I stayed at a hotel downtown. Not out of pride, just boundaries. Reframe Labs had grown fast, and we needed fresh talent. I proposed a Midwest hiring initiative, and our HR team lined up a series of college visits and job fairs. Madison was just one of the stops. At the time, it felt like just another line item on the calendar. I remember walking into the Fairview Community Center for the job fair. It smelled like floor polish and cold coffee. Our booth had a simple setup: 2 banners, a stack of brochures, and a screen looping a video about our latest UX projects. Nothing fancy, but effective. I'd only been there maybe 20 minutes when I saw her. Kelsey Burns. She was standing at the next booth over, holding a resume and wearing a beige pantsuit that didn't quite fit. Her hair was darker now, maybe dyed, and the years had softened the arrogance in her face. But I knew it was her instantly. The laugh, the posture, the slight roll of the eyes when someone spoke too long. Classic Kelsey. She didn't notice me. Not yet. Then came Mia Rivera, slimmer, still sharp-featured, but with deep lines near her mouth. She was talking to one of the booth reps from another company, handing out resumes like flyers. And then, unbelievably, Travis Donnelly walked in. He looked almost the same, tall, cocky, but with a little desperation around the eyes. He passed by our booth, glanced at our company name, and made a quick mental note. I stood there, stunned. Not because I was still afraid of them, but because they had no idea who I was. And then, 2 days later, their names popped up again in our applicant tracking system. All 3 of them had applied to Reframe Labs. Different roles, same desperation. Kelsey wanted a UX project manager role. Mia applied for customer support. Travis? He was aiming for a junior research analyst position. I remember staring at my laptop in disbelief. I took a long sip of my cold coffee and laughed. Not out of joy. More out of the sheer absurdity of it. After everything they put me through, now they were coming to me for a job. I didn't tell HR who they were not yet. I asked that all 3 move to the interview round. Let's see what they bring to the table, I told my team. Let's treat them like everyone else. Because at that moment, I realized something. I didn't need to punish them. I just needed to give them the chance to reveal who they really were. And this time, I would be the one watching. I scheduled the final round interviews for the following week back in our Seattle office. That wasn't standard practice. Normally, we'd do remote interviews for out-of-state applicants, but I told HR we were piloting an executive culture fit round for management track roles. It wasn't a lie. I just didn't tell them why I wanted to be in the room. Kelsey came in first. She walked into the glass conference room in a navy blazer, clutching a worn leather portfolio. Her resume looked impressive. She'd bounced around a few companies, nothing stellar, but not terrible either. She smiled the second she saw me. "Hi, I'm Kelsey Burns. Thank you for having me." I stood, shook her hand, and smiled back. "Hi, Kelsey. I'm Dana Moore, co-founder and CEO of Reframe Labs." She blinked, paused. The smile faltered, just a little. "Wait, Dana? Dana Moore from Madison?" I nodded slowly, watching it register, watching her recalibrate. "Oh my God, I didn't recognize you. Wow, you look amazing." "It's been, 10 years?" She laughed nervously. I didn't. "Yes, about that. Please have a seat." She sat. I watched her posture change. Less confidence now, more guarded. I opened the folder in front of me. "So, Kelsey, I read your application. I'm curious, what made you want to work here?" She launched into a practice speech about admiring Reframe's user-centered values and wanting to grow under strong female leadership. The irony nearly made me laugh. This from the girl who once dumped a soda on my laptop during study hall and called me the fat girl who'd never matter. But I didn't flinch. I kept it professional. Took notes. Asked questions. "How do you handle team conflict?" She shifted. "Well, I believe in resolving things privately. No gossip, no drama." "Of course you do now." Travis and Mia had similar reactions when they came in. Mia barely looked me in the eye. Travis tried to play it cool, like we were old buddies. Dana Moore. "Man, this is wild. Small world, huh?" I smiled politely. "Very." I gave them the same chance I gave everyone. Let them speak. Let them sell themselves. Let them act like professionals. But what they didn't realize was, I wasn't looking for revenge. I was watching to see who they'd become without the power they once had. And what I saw was that they hadn't changed nearly as much as they thought they had. I'll be honest, part of me expected them to walk into those interviews with some hint of self-awareness. Some acknowledgement, even a subtle one, that we shared a past and that maybe, just maybe, they weren't proud of it. But no, they smiled. They spun stories. They pretended we were all just professionals in a room. No history, no hallway taunts, no bruises left behind. Fine. If they wanted to pretend the past didn't exist, I could play along. But I wasn't done watching. After the final interviews, I brought their files to our leadership team. I didn't tell them the personal backstory. Instead, I did what I always do. I asked questions. Let's evaluate them based on their merit. No favors, no bias, I said. I want your honest read. Our project director, Anjali, wasn't impressed by Travis. His data skills are surface level at best. Talks a good game, but there's no depth. Our operations head, Marcus, was blunt about Mia, not a team player. Dodged questions on accountability. And she seemed irritated when I pressed her on handling customer complaints. Kelsey got mixed reviews. Her project management skills were solid, but our lead UX strategist, Helen, picked up on something deeper. She takes credit for team wins, but dances around her own mistakes. And she tried too hard to name drop during our chat, like she was selling herself more than joining a team. I listened. I nodded. And then I made my decision. I approved Kelsey for a probationary hire, a junior PM role, 3-month contract. I wanted her close. I wanted to see how she handled being in a space where she had to earn respect, not assume it. Travis and Mia? I sent them polite rejection letters, thanking them for their time and wishing them luck. The next day, Kelsey showed up for her onboarding. She wore a fake smile and a new blazer, acting like we were just two professionals reconnecting over success. She tried to bond over old times, but I kept my tone crisp and professional. There are no old times here, Kelsey, I said. We're starting from zero. I assigned her to one of our most demanding clients under Anjali's supervision. No easy projects, no shortcuts, just real work, high expectations, and regular feedback. Week 1, she struggled with timelines. Week 2, she submitted incomplete briefs. By week 4, The client had escalated concerns twice. Still, I didn't interfere. I let the process play out, just like anyone else. The girl who once laughed at me in a crowded hallway was now scrambling to hold on to a job at my company under my standards. And I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to humiliate her. I just had to let her face something she never expected: accountability. By her second month at Reframe Labs, Kelsey was unraveling. I didn't micromanage her. I didn't publicly criticize her. I didn't have to. The systems we built at Reframe were designed to reward collaboration, discipline, and humility. Traits Kelsey had never needed to develop in high school, because back then, she thrived on dominance. Now, she was just another name in the project management tracker. Another employee whose work spoke louder than her charm ever could. And it wasn't saying much. Anjali came to me after their fourth client meeting. She keeps pushing blame onto junior designers, she said. Missed 2 deadlines and tried to spin it as communication errors. I've pulled her aside, coached her, even gave her templates to work with. But she's not growing. She's surviving, and barely. Still, I waited. 3-month contracts at Reframe always come with a performance review at the 8-week mark. It's not personal, it's policy. So when the day came, I let Anjali lead the session while I sat in as an observer. Kelsey walked in with a forced smile and a pre-prepared binder. She opened it with flair, pointing to completed timelines and client feedback. I know I've had a few bumps, she admitted, but I've grown a lot and I'm confident I'm ready for full-time. Anjali listened quietly, then opened her own file. Kelsey, we've received 2 client complaints in the last 6 weeks. The timeline for Project Ava was delayed due to lack of documentation. And the team feedback on your collaboration has been consistent: unclear instructions, reactive communication, and limited ownership. Kelsey's face tightened. Well, the design team dropped the ball more than once. I can't manage what they don't deliver on time. Anjali raised an eyebrow. We checked the records. The designers had all assets submitted by deadline. It was your brief that left the scope vague. Silence. Kelsey looked at me then, really looked at me. For the first time. But I said nothing. This wasn't personal. It was performance. Anjali closed the folder. As per the terms of your contract, we won't be moving forward with a full-time role. You'll receive your final paycheck and recommendation letter by Friday. We wish you the best. Kelsey nodded slowly. Her face was flushed, but she didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't apologize. And neither did I. She gathered her things and left the room. And just like that, she was gone. No outburst. No dramatic goodbye. No confrontation. Just the quiet weight of consequence. The slow, undeniable realization that she had failed, not because of karma or revenge, but because she had never learned how to rise without pushing others down. And me? I sat back in my chair, hands folded in my lap, and breathed. Not because I'd won, but because I no longer needed to prove that I had. It was Friday afternoon. The office was quiet. Most of the team had already slipped out early for the weekend. I was finishing up emails when I heard a knock at my office door. Kelsey stood there, holding a plain white envelope, her final paperwork, I guessed. Her eyes looked tired. Not defiant. Not angry. Just worn out. Hi, she said softly. I nodded. Hi. She stepped inside, shut the door behind her, and stood in front of my desk. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just looked around the room, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the shelf of UX design awards, the photo of my mom and me in a silver frame. This is your company, she finally said. Yes, I replied. You built all this? I nodded again. There was silence, thick and heavy. Then she let out a shaky breath. I didn't come here to ask for anything. I know I blew it. I know I wasn't good enough for this place. She paused, swallowed. And I know I was cruel. Back then. In high school. I remember. All of it. I kept my expression neutral. I used to tell myself it was just teenage stuff, that we were all stupid kids. But you remember it all, don't you? I looked her in the eye. Every word. She nodded. I figured. Kelsey took a step back, as if preparing to leave. But then she added something I didn't expect. I hope someday you know that what you've built here, it's beautiful. You could have destroyed me if you wanted to, but you didn't. There was a beat. Then I said, that was never the point. She gave a small nod, turned, and walked out, closing the door gently behind her. And that was it. No dramatic apology. No grand confrontation. Just two people older now, facing the quiet truth of who they used to be and who they became. I sat back in my chair, the sunlight casting soft shadows across the hardwood floor. My inbox pinged with a new message, but I didn't open it right away, because in that moment, I realized something. Closure doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it arrives in a whisper in the space between what was and what is. I didn't need Kelsey to suffer. I didn't need her to beg. I didn't need to remind her of who I was, because she saw it. And more importantly, so did I. The girl they once mocked had become the woman they now had to answer to, and she didn't need revenge to win. She just needed to rise.